What's happening out there, gang? Welcome to the first ever Roto Scouts lineup card show for MLB DFS. Hopefully, you guys can hear me out there. This is the first show. We're getting a little test going here. Hopefully, we're going to go live on time. Doesn't look like we're streaming yet, but I did click the go live button, so we'll find out what's happening here. Hopefully, that's just the YouTube lag. Might just end up here talking to myself. No real clue what's going on here, but we'll find out as we go. We'll see how this thing works. So let's take a look here. I will. All right. What's up, guys? Terry, can hear you fine. So it's just not streaming. Can you see me, guys? Let me know in the chat if you can see me here, because I don't appear to be. I don't see myself streaming on YouTube here. Maybe I just need to reload the YouTube page. Clunky intro for the first show, but what are you going to do? Let me see. Oh, there we go. I reloaded YouTube. I can see myself. So that's a plus. All right. Cool. So we're live, guys. What's going on? Appreciate you guys coming to hang out for the first show. This is the first one we've ever done, like I was just saying. So it's probably going to be a little clunky as I click around this stuff, producing this on my own, et cetera, kind of like the entire site. Right? We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. But I appreciate all you guys, coming and hanging out with me, and hopefully clicking to the site and getting something out of the content. Putting a lot into getting that done every day for you guys. So hopefully everybody's getting something out of that. A little bit of a labor of love right now. Soft launching it, haven't monetized anything, haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do, but we'll see what happens here. So I figured today we've got this weird chopped up slate where we've got a 10 gamer starting at 1 o'clock on DK, and then we've got a 7 game. FanDuel's calling the main slate that starts at 4 o'clock. I'm also going to the Yankees game today, so I want to get out of here. It's noonish, somewhere around there. So I figure we'll go through those games. Apologies to anybody looking for content for the 5-game DK night slate that I think they're calling their main slate, but both the afternoon and the night ones are 50K up toppers. So they're at least pretty nice tournaments available. It's basically a main slate in the afternoon there too. So without further ado, I've got the model fired up here. Let's dive on in. I'm going to try and use this view so you guys don't have to stare at the version of my ugly mug here. So we'll see. Hopefully that comes through well enough. I've been playing with the layout here, trying to get it so it zooms in enough on what we're looking at here. So you guys will see here, I'm hiding my projections for right now, but I'm giving you guys kind of like a color-coded, guideline for like these and it's DFS, right? It's MLB DFS. You're kind of going to know where the highly projected guys are, and then you see like a guy like Brandon Dixon's going to come in here as a red, as a black, meaning like he's bottom 10 percentile. So this is basically taking a comparison of the projections that are just what you can see on the board here, right? It's not conditional formatting for these two teams. So it's within that set of players that it's using those percentages, but you get a little bit of an idea of where the heavily total guys are. And it's somewhat obvious anyway. It's MLB DFS, like we all know. So diving into the first game here, we've got the Pods at the Yankees, the game I'm going to. Pods have Michael Wacha on deck. Wacha's a frustrating pitcher for me for DFS. Like, he's always a little bit better than he seems like he should be. He checks in at 7,100 on that DK slate. That makes him pretty viable against my Yankees here. They have a tendency to come out against pitchers like this, be a little bit flat. There's plenty of swing and miss in that Yankees lineup. We're looking at the confirmed version of the Yankees lineup. If you look right over here, we've got their strikeout rates. I mean, we've got a healthy strikeout average, 22.9% for the confirmed lineup, and that's including some weak-ass hitters like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in there. Oswaldo Cabrera is 19.4%. IK at 15.8%, but that's from a guy hitting 204, 260, 355 this year with a 69 WRC plus and 101 plate appearances. So not exactly an intimidating type of DFS player there. So I do think there's plenty of strikeouts to be had where there's weak hitters to be had for Michael Wacha here. It's not great. It's a pretty decent hitting matchup over at the stadium today. It's a warm day here in the Bronx. You obviously have plenty of power around the Anthony Rizzo, Aaron Judge set here. And you can see those guys kind of shining through. This is the home run ball column right here. Right? So we can see Gleyber's getting a decent little rating. Aaron Judge, obviously, is always going to have a massive rating. Rizzo's pulling a nice number there. But it's not great the rest of the way down to the X. It's just not a great lineup if we're being honest about it. So we'll go into that. Somebody's saying, David Oaks saying the audio is in and out. Is everybody getting that the audio is going in and out? Let me know, guys. First show here, but we'll clean it up as we go. We'll see what's going on with that. But hopefully you can hear me at least a little bit, and I'll check that stuff out. I'll rewatch this later on and see what can be improved. And, maybe we'll hire a producer one day. So Waka, somewhat in play at that $7,100 price, right? That like makes him like a loose SP2 option. On the other side, Luis Severino getting his first start back for the Yanks. Obviously a premium pitcher, high end guy, 4 2/3 innings this year, 27.8% strikeout rate. So Sevy is 7,000, 9,000 across on the small FanDuel slate at 9K, 7,000 on DK. Maybe you get enough innings out of him. You don't need to worry about the quality start bonus or any of that. So at that price tag, I don't hate it. Going up against a team like this, you can see how top heavy it is. A good illustration here of just how top heavy this Padres lineup truly is, right? Even Fernando Tatis, Juan Soto, obviously two great players, but even the top of the order, you're getting some low end options here. The Reds are guys that are between I think like 25 and 10% of the totals here, so just low end options throughout the Padres lineup outside of Tatis and Soto. You get no Xander Bogaerts today. Manny Machado still laid up, so not the greatest lineup. I could see Sevy having a decent few innings against this team. It's just a question of how much depth of start we get out of them. If you're looking to the Padres, they're certainly cheap outside of Tatis and Soto, right? You get a lot of cost sunk into those two players. But it's really easy to offset that when you're getting the Dixons, the Nelson Cruzes of the world for really cheap. Maybe you get a little power out of Nelson Cruz, but it's not. It hasn't been great for Nelson these days. He's playing against a righty today. He's pretty much primarily on the short side of platoons these days against lefties. Overall, 250, 400, 150, 250, 276, 400 with a 150 ISO, 84 WRC plus out of Nelson Cruz. So hasn't been all that much, but we do still like from Nelson from time to time when he does connect. Nice little 49.3% hard hit rate, 9% barrel rate here. So you can play the Padres, you can string together, Tatis, Soto, and then odds and ends type pieces. But it's not great. Severino is a premium pitcher. You maybe get into the Yankees bullpen a little early and get with it that way. I already went through the Yanks a little bit, but again, if I'm stacking them, I'm playing Torres, I'm playing Judge, I'm playing Rizzo. DJ LeMahieu is having a really weird year. I've written about it a few times already this season. He's got his hard hit rate up from 40.6% last year to 49.2%. Not really doing much different with the barrel, a little bit up. But what's strange is he's done that, but he's also doubled his strikeout rate, 13.1% last year, 26.3% this year. And the hard hits haven't really translated into like a bunch of additional power for him, which is what you'd hope for that trade-off, right? If I'm going to trade 13% strikeout for 26%, I want a dude who's got 10 home runs at this point. I want a dude with a 200 plus ISO. DJ's got 5. DJ got 5 long balls, a 140 ISO. He's creating runs exactly at league average with a 100 WRC plus. So it hasn't been great for DJ in this new form. I was kind of excited about him coming into this year. He was, by all claims, he was healthy after a lot of like weird nagging injuries the past few seasons. But it hasn't been great. Hasn't really been there for DJ yet this year. So we'll see what happens there. Bader's been good. Definitely a catalyst for this offense since he's been back. But like I said, the bottom half of this lineup is kind of weak. Opie has produced nice counting stats, 7 home runs, 13 stolen bases, but an 80 WRC plus, only a 162 ISO, 200. He's right at the Mendoza line. You've got Oswaldo Cabrera and Kyle Higashioka below the Mendoza line. KF sitting right at it. So it is a weak back end of the Yankees lineup, and that hurts their ability to turn it over and get back to those core hitters. So even if you're not playing those guys, that does become a bit of an important factor. I do talk about Kyle Higashioka as a cheap DK catcher, 2,500. I love Kyle Higashioka. I wish he was the everyday catcher. He's almost as good defensively as some of those other guys, and I love his 17.8% barrel rate, 55.6% hard hit this year, 48.1% hard hit last year. It's only 78 plate appearances this year, so we got to deal with small samples, but he's got a better bat than the other options for the Yankees. So I do like seeing Higgy in there, but it's not a great lineup. On to the next one, we've got confirmed lineups in this one as well. This one also DK in that 10 gamer, but separate on the FanDuel. So we've got the FanDuel, kind of a flat pitching option in this one. Like Jesse Schulten's 8 innings out of the pen so far. Looks like he's going to be acting as an opener, but he's not like a premium power arm. 15.6% strikeout rate, 12.5% walks, 5.13 xFIP this season. Not a guy that you would consider that blow away kind of an arm. So I feel like if you're going to Tigers, if you have a habit of doing that, you grab some of the lefties off the top here. They're not going to be very popular. They're going to be fairly cheap on every slate. So that's fine. You're going into the Schultens and then the White Sox man or whoever the bulk reliever is. I don't have that, but I don't really feel threatened by that spot. But you're going into it with a Tigers lineup that is just ungodly bad. One of the worst in baseball overall. You can see there's a couple guys who have one with a very short sample here in the positive WRC plus. Then you get Akil Baddoo is up to a 109 WRC plus. McKinstry and Green have actually been decent. I won't even use the word good, but at least decent. Right, McKinstry, a 133 WRC plus in his 140 plate appearances, 3 homers, 7 stolen bases. That's fine. And it's usable for DFS because he's always cheap. He's never popular. He's always at the top of the lineup these days. Green has actually been pretty okay. 295, 359, 437. Creating runs 25% better than average. Doesn't have a ton of power, but he's got a 43.5% hard hit, 1.9% barrels. Price, never that popular. So 5 home runs, 5 steals, 25% better than average. The rest of this lineup, first overall pick Spencer Torkelson. That was a total waste of a first overall pick unless some of his premium contact starts to translate. He's still young. There's still plenty of time. Only 4 home runs at 238, 309, 365 over the first 204 plate appearances this year. He was really bad last year. And we're dealing with a guy who does have, though, something to point out. He's only 2,700, so this is worth mentioning. 9.2% barrels, 48.6% hard hits. That's decent. It's not outstanding. It's not great. It's not outrageous, but it's okay. And for that $2,700 price, it's actually fine in this spot. So we can buy Spencer Torkelson here if you're going to maybe you got some Eric Haas, his power upside. We all know that he's got some pop in the catcher spot. Nice up to him moving up the lineup role. So there's a little bit of potential here from the top side of things, but it's not great. Maton's been all right. Akil Baddoo had nice stats a couple of years ago. Hit a home run last night, 259, 360, all 120 experiences. That's fine. It's not the greatest production. You're not paying a lot for him. Bottom of the lineup, kind of weak scope. Banya's Zach Short down there. Other side of this one, Michael Lorenzen on the mound for 6,800 on the DK slate there. Another guy he's going to get a full start, 39 and 2/3 this year, 7 starts, but not a premium option. 4.8 ERA, 4.24 X. Those are fine for a low-end pitcher. That's okay, serviceable league averages type numbers. But he's giving up too much premium contact, which I've here. You can see that. 11.7% barrel rate, 42.5% hard hits, a 90.6 mile an hour average exit velo, 3.68% home run rate. That's concerning contact, concerning power. So I'm going to go to the White Sox bats if I'm playing this game, and they would be my preferred side when you're going up against them. They're a little bit more expensive on the DK, but easily affordable. If you're playing the FanDuel early, they're easy over there. The confirmed lineup, Timmy I like. He's kind of scuffled along in his first 148 plate appearances. He was hurt in the season, but I expect him around into form. Great hit tool, mid-range power, great speed. So I like Timmy Anderson. Benintendi's the weird 2.1% barrel rate, 27.5% hard hits this year. Hard hits were never his game, but he was at least 38.5% last year. 0.1% barrels. So just a total disappearance of any kind of power that he had, the ability to drive. He's sitting at 275, 333, 360, 0.085 ISO, 91 WRC plus. It hasn't been good for him, but he puts the ball in play. So you can go through if you're going to White Sox. I would only want him in conjunction with like Timmy Anderson, Joel Moncada, Andrew Vaughn, something like that. Together with those guys, it looks a little bit better in the corner. On his own, there's not much there from Benintendi this year. Moncada's been very good, and obviously you get no Luba, no Luis Romero Jr., so that's a big downgrade. He's been big downgrade to them, but they're still serviceable bats here, right? So Joel Moncada is 2,900 across sight. He's been pretty good since coming back after injury in the WBC. Got hurt, 330, 17% rating runs. So there's some upside. Andrew Vaughn, the guy who chased Jose Abreu out of town, which is hurting Astros, been good for the White Sox. He really produced them, but he's been kind of 102 WR, better than average for runs, 175 ISO. They're hoping for more power out of this kid. I think it's coming. 49% hard hit rate for the season, $3,400. White Sox. So you can see Andrew get into a decent one here. Audio's pretty bad. Maybe put on some headphones. What do we mean by pretty bad, Andrew? David? It might. This is a new mic, so I'm also not sure what headphones would do because I don't have any. So let me know what it sounds like if you can, David, in there. Let me know what you're actually hearing. It's in and out. Okay. I don't know what to do about that. Let me see here on the old StreamYard if there's anything audio settings wise. Got the dog down here freaking out too, by the way. Let's see. Echo cancellation. Automatically adjust mic volume. If I do this, maybe I turn that off. How about now? Is there anything now? Just I'm going to keep on talking. Just let me know, Dave, Dennis. If, you'll see when you go back and listen. Maybe I'll be able to fix it for the next show. Yeah, hopefully. But that's disappointing. But yeah, it's little glitches that I'm going to have to deal with as I figure this shit out. Good now. Seth says it's good now. It's only really bad when you get on a roll. That's great, Den. Thanks. Perfect. So only when I'm really enthusiastic and trying to tell you guys something is when it gets bad. Perfect. This sounds much better. Okay, cool. So maybe it was I turned off. They had a auto canceling, auto echo canceling. So maybe that was automatically cutting in and screwing up just based on the shitty way that I talk and my weird pattern. All right, let's get back into this one. Hopefully that'll stick and that change is good. Where were we? White Sox lineup. So we talked about Andrew Vaughn, Yasmani Grandal, good catcher, decent this season, 277, 342, 426, 115 WRC plus. So he's been productive. He hasn't been that ridiculous guy who was walking like 25% of the time from 2 years ago, but he's good enough. He gets himself on base. He'll probably walk a little bit more when the season's done. Last year, 12%, 21% strikeout. So that's how he stays involved typically, is just by getting on base. Nice little correlated scoring play for a cheap price. Never very popular catcher. Jake Berger, very weird year for him. 10 home runs early. Still at a 348 ISO, a 144 WRC plus. Still sitting with a 21.3% barrel rate, 52% hard hits. Those are robust contact numbers when he connects, but he's a Brent Rooker-esque kind of a guy that I don't really believe in. Post-type prospect type of a guy. Quad A type player probably. A guy with minor league power who can, when he connects in the majors, hit one out, like what we've seen with Rooker. There are just too many holes in the swing. With Rooker in April, when he was going insane, he was striking out 18% of the time, hitting all those home runs, but he still had a 36 to 38% whiff rate on every different type of pitch, right? So like fastballs, breaking balls, off-speed stuff. So it was just clear as day that he was going to come crashing back to earth. Berger's in that same kind of a realm. He's not one of these elite hitters who still strikes out at a 30% rate, but is a three true outcomes guy who's going to walk at an aggressive clip, like and first mention of him on the old show, one of our favorites, Mr. Joey Gallo, who does walk at an aggressive rate. So he's not necessarily one of those guys. And obviously, you take and leave Gallo and that type of a player. So as a worse version of him, you don't necessarily want him on any given slate, but if you're going to White Sox, he certainly makes some sense, right? 3,300, 3,100 is a good price for a guy who's got 10 homers in 123 plate appearances. So I wouldn't skip him, I wouldn't leave him out. We're just talking about a guy who is overall a flawed player. Know what you're getting when you buy him. Gavin Sheets, lefty pop from the other side of the plate, 21% strikeout rate this year, 7 home runs, 202 ISO. Nice production out of Sheets in his 122 plate appearances. So again, another guy, he's cheap, he can hit one out. It's not great, but if you're going to this White Sox lineup, you're kind of already dedicated to the concept of using not great hitters, right? Clint Frazier, nice to see him in the league, 2,200, 2,000 dead minimum down the bottom of the old lineup here. We'll see if he can turn it into anything in this opportunity. He's certainly had a bunch of them. He's weird. He's not been bad when he's been in the majors. He came up as a top prospect years ago and it was never bad, always produced, but was blocked when he was with the Yankees by a lot of positions and big money guys and stuff like that. And then anytime he did get a chance, he would run headfirst into a wall and get himself a concussion or weird injuries like that. So we'll see if he can stay healthy, if he can be on the fields. At those prices, I don't hate him. I think he's a serviceable outfielder at those prices. Romy Gonzalez, kind of a spare part down there. Let's move on to the old next one. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. First plug for that. Nothing to plug, nothing to sell you guys. Everything on the site is free. The site is rotoscouts. If you haven't been over there, go check it out. I'm going to start trying to, if I keep doing the shows, which is kind of going to be the plan, I think. What I'm thinking of doing And you guys can let me know in Discord or whatever if you like it. I got to find out if it's even viable. What I'm thinking about doing is like banging out an hour morning show and then using like Chat GPT or something like that to transcribe it so that I can replace the article that I was doing on the site. And then I'll have some time to be able to go in and put together like a top stacks tool, top pitching tool every day. So I'll hopefully have that and, kind of by doing this, maybe enhance everything else that's going on the site. But for right now, everything's free. I'll figure out a way to monetize it and squeeze some bucks out of you guys at some point. But for right now, we're just going for the fun of it, and hopefully everybody's getting something out of it. So let's dive into this last one. Last one that is a split game, only on the DK main. Blue Jays going up against the Twins. You get two good pitchers in this one. Chris Bassett, 8,500 on the DK slate. Pablo Lopez, 8,700 on the DK slate. Lopez pitching better than Bassett this season, but both pitchers give you depth, give you the idea of veteran reliability, some idea of some strikeouts, and just some decent levels of talent. Bassett, 3.03 ERA, but an uglier 4.77 xFIP on the season. That kind of tells you who he's been this year. 20.6% strikeout rate is down a little bit, 9.4% swinging strikes. He's never been a major strikeout guy, but I like Chris Bassett better at like 23-24% strikeouts. But you always do like the depth. He's a more interesting pitcher typically on FanDuel because he chases that quality start for you a lot. He is good at limiting premium contact to a degree, 31.2% hard hit rate this year, only 87.2 miles an hour of average exit velo. He's given up a few barrels that have turned into home runs, but it's nothing overly concerning. Like, I think Bassett ultimately is still Chris Bassett, and we'll put it all together in his numbers by the end of the year. He's kind of a compiler anyway, so I think that'll kind of come through and he'll be that guy at the end of the year. 8,500 against the high strikeout Twins lineup. You can see here this projected Twins lineup, 28.5% average strikeout rate. That is high. So even Chris Bassett can find some strikeouts against this team. 8,500, probably a pretty good price for Bassett there. You get the opportunity to chase a potential win with the Blue Jays favored. So I like that spot. Pablo Lopez, though, been very, very good on the other side. I just said Blue Jays favored, but I might not be right about that. I think it's a close line. Either way, Pablo Lopez, 8,700. That's a nice price for him. Obviously, you're throwing him into the better of these two lineups with the star caliber players up at the top for the Blue Jays, and then a decent second third with Brandon Belt, Whit Merrifield, Dalton Varsho there. So I like that Blue Jays lineup, but Pablo's been really good. 30.5% strikeout rate, 3.56 xFIP, 3.90 ERA, a 14.8% swinging strike rate. That is a big jump for this guy. He's always been good, but he got kind of overshadowed by Sandy Alcantara down in Miami when he was down there. So he was never this good. And so he's both gotten out of Sandy's shadow and made a big, big leap forward. So if you paid attention in the offseason, he did a little bit of talking about how when he first got to Minnesota, they kind of sat him down before they had him throw any bullpens or anything, and they did like 3 video analysis sessions, talked to him about mechanics. He was really, really psyched coming into the season about some changes that they had him made, and we are seeing some results here. So I'm kind of buying into this with Pablo. I don't know that he's going to maintain a 30% strikeout rate, but I think he's going to be pretty good through the entire season. So I think you can buy here. 8,700 is not a bad price for this pitcher in this, pitching at this level. Again, the Blue Jays, it's not a great team to go to. They're difficult to strike out. You see the 3 stars up at the top here. We'll go through their lineup now. Bo Bichette, George Springer, and Vladdy Guerrero up at the top. 15% strikeout rates for all 3 of those guys. Obviously a ton of power for all 3 of those guys. They're all over the magic number for home runs. You've got 7 homers on the season for Springer, and he's been kind of bumping along the bottom. So if he gets his act together, this team's just going to take off and go to another level. But he's up above average at a 102 WRC plus now. 7 homers, 8 stolen bases. Then you get Bo with 10 homers, Vladdy with 8 homers of his own. He's kind of scuffling a little bit for power too, which is worth noting. His contact numbers are fine. They're actually up if you look over here. Year over year, barrels are up from 11.2 to 13.7. Hard hits are up from 50.4 to 55.9. So if Vladdy's actually hitting the ball with better contact, but it's resulted in fewer home runs and less power in the ISO department. So weird little situation there. I expect that'll correct itself very, very quickly. And obviously all 3 of those guys difficult to strike out. So that chews into Pablo's upside a little bit here. But I think he's got the talent to get those guys, or to at least get through them. And then you run into some heavy strikeout guys with Chapman and Belt. I like both those hitters. I think Belt is the better buy at first base, 2,300, 2,500. It sucks on DK that you have to sacrifice Vladdy Guerrero to play him on the FanDuel slate if you're playing that early one, or when you get the Blue Jays on other FanDuel slates. I really like the idea of playing Belt and Vladdy in the same lineup because Belt is cheap, and we're talking about a guy who hit, 29 home runs in like 384 plate appearances a couple years ago. I've written this so many times that all these numbers are just floating in my head now. I don't even have to look. That's if I went To the right over here, that's all over there. See if I just scroll over, we got more 2022, 2021. Let's see, was I right? 29 home runs in 381 plate appearances. I was off by 3 plate appearances. So Brandon Belt, significant power hitter, and hasn't been bad in his limited opportunities with Toronto. 135 plate appearances, 2 homers this year, 119 WRC plus. The power hasn't really been there, but he's helped create runs in his opportunities. So I like Belt there. Whit Merrifield, ton of speed, 14 stolen bases, decent hit tool, 291, 339, 388. Gets himself involved, gets on base, can run. Dalton Varsho's been kind of disappointing for them. 36.1% hard hits, 7.5% barrels. The barrels are down. The hard hits are actually up a little bit, but the barrels going down has cut into his power numbers, has cut into his quality a lot. 7 home runs for the season, a 77 WRC plus, 152 ISO for Dalton Varsho, 209, 278, 361. So not the greatest start to the season for Varsho here in Toronto. Heineman, Kevin Kiermaier down the bottom. You can kind of skip those guys. On the Twins side, going up against Bassett, we're going to have more contact available. We're going to have the opportunity to drive the ball. Like I said before, he's not been terrible for giving up hard hits, but there have been plenty of barrels against him this year. So it'll be interesting to see what the Twins can do with that. The projected lineup, we'll see. I don't have the confirmed here. They might have confirmed it by now. But the one I'm working with here, Edouard Julien, their premium rookie, up at the top of the lineup here. Hasn't been great. Hit those 3 early home runs, went back to the minors, came back up recently. He's hitting ahead of Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. Obviously, you love both of those guys. Correa has been really scuffling along, is also dealing with plantar fasciitis in the foot that wasn't the one that was a concern in the offseason, which is obviously weird. But he's back in the lineup now, came back last night, 6 homers on the season. I'll always go to Carlos Correa, especially when he's discounted for past struggles, right? That's a lot of thing that when we get these star caliber players, they've been bumping along, they come down in price. You don't worry about the last few weeks a lot of the time. There might be some concerns here with Correa. We'll find out. I still expect him to turn it around. I don't think there's anything actually going on. He's got an 11.7% barrel rate, 43.8% hard hit. That's fine. So I think we can get away with Correa. Particularly at price. And like I was saying, you're just getting a discount on him now, right? We're not playing those last few weeks of production today. We're playing today. So take him at the cheap price. You know he's a star, has been for years. Buxton, 6,100, 3,600 across sites, 10 home runs on the season, 243 ISO, 124 WRC plus. I don't really need to sell Byron Buxton that hard. Kirilloff, first base outfield eligibility on DK for 3,600 is nice from a guy with the idea of left-handed power. 3 home runs and 64 plate appearances is pretty good, but only a 5.4% barrel rate, 29.7% hard hits so far. So we'll see if he can turn that around. Much better production for contact last year. Kyle Farmer, Willie Castro, Matt Wallner, Ryan Jeffers, Michael A. Taylor. You can take or leave any one of those guys. Kind of a mixed bag of mix and match options down the bottom of the lineup. Taylor with a weird 6 home runs already this season, 172 ISO, 80 WRC plus though, so not great overall. Just hits those weird slate bending, low owned, low priced home runs every now and again. So that's what we get out of Mikey Taylor down the bottom of the lineup there. Both teams in play, but I like the pitching, I think, a little bit better on both sides. But this is kind of a 4 corners game for me. I wouldn't tell anybody they were making a mistake for any one of those spots. Jump over to the Rangers and the Orioles. We'll welcome in the FanDuel main slate. We've got a 7-gamer over on FanDuel. First up, we've got Dean Kramer going for the hometown Baltimore Orioles. Kramer, 18.9% strikeout rate for the season, a 4.62 xFIP, a 4.61 ERA. So at least we know he is exactly what he looks like on the surface, right? This is who he is. There's no sneaky better talent. He's not sneakily worse. He's just meh. Just kind of mediocre, league average type pitcher. He's given up a lot of contact, which is something I think we can focus on with this league-leading Rangers lineup that has been creating runs better than anybody in the league, hitting for a ton of power. I think this is something you can attack with Kramer here. 11.4% barrel rate for the season, 47.9% hard hits allowed, a 90.4 mile an hour average exit velo, and pushing a 4% home run rate. So a lot of power, a lot of premium contact available from a guy who doesn't strike a lot of people out. That's a good mix. That's something that we're always going to be looking for DFS purposes, right? A guy who doesn't strike a ton of people out is going to allow contact and allows a lot of hard contact against a lineup that finds a lot of hard contact. So much more enthusiastic about the Rangers side of this one. You get Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nathaniel Lau, Low. Is it Low? He's Low. The other guy's Lau. We need to clarify all of these Low names. We need We need one common dictionary of baseball names that everybody's pronouncing everything the same, everybody's got an assigned player number, and they're all being used across all the different sites. That's what I want for baseball next season. But Nathaniel, don't call me Nate Lowe in the 3 spot there. Nice hitter for 4,600, 3,200 across sites. 286, 371, 454 this year. 30% better than average creating runs, kind of in the heart of that lineup. He doesn't have the power that the other guys have, the Semyons, the Seagers, and the Adolis Garcias of the world, but he's a nice little run creation engine for them, and does a lot with the bat. Good hit tool, and keeps things going behind Semyon and Seager and ahead of Garcia. So really like getting Nathaniel Lowe into stacks. Semyon and Seager is the best middle infield duo for power in all of baseball. Probably the best overall hitting middle infield duo. You've got 12 combined home runs with Seager having missed most of the season. Plenty of run creation there. Adolis Garcia is a star. 15.5% barrel rate, 52.8% hard hits, 14 homers, a 269 ISO, creating runs 23% better than average. So you can just straight line this lineup from 1 through 5 with Josh Young in there. You can skip Young and go to Jonah Heim as a nicely priced catcher on the DK slate. So 5 and 6 are guys that I wouldn't leave out of this lineup. They're both fairly priced, 4,900, 4,400 on DK, both at 3,400 on the FanDuel slate. Young has 11 home runs on the season, 229 ISO, creating runs 29% better than average. His strikeouts have been the major concern coming into this season. An 38.2% strikeout rate last year. That's just wildly unsustainable. You see these power hitter types that if you're at 31% strikeouts, you can kind of squeak by. You can get there, especially if you walk a lot. Josh Young doesn't walk a lot, so he needs to keep that around 30%. 38, even for a guy who does walk a lot, was kind of unsustainable. So he was just dead in the water last year. He's cut that to 29.7%, and he's pushed walks up to 5.9% this year. So that's sustainable, and he's been good with the bat. 282, 327, 511. So nice little breakout season for Josh Young. Definitely somebody you can get into your Rangers stacks here. Heim, like I said, cheap catcher, nice contact profile, 6 home runs already on the season, creating runs 16% better than average. So you can go to Jonah Heim. The back end, Robbie Grossman, Leody Taveras. I know Taveras hit a home run yesterday. He was a nice little producer yesterday in this lineup. Those guys are mix and match pieces, Grossman and Taveras. But Ezekiel Duran, I think, is actually a pretty good player. 301, 340, 515 so far this year. Typically from the bottom of the lineup, 35% better than average creating runs. Did a good job filling in while Seager was out, and kind of finally won himself a full-time role here. So he's getting everyday action. 10.8% barrel rate, 48% hard hits, 7 homers, 3 stolen bases on the year. Nice little season from Duran. And what I really like is a $3,300 shortstop on DK. That's fine, but you get him for $3,000 with second, short, and outfield eligibility on the FanDuel slate. That's killer for this team. The ability to flex him in and out of different roles, combine this team with a bunch of different options, and not be restricted with what players you can use from the other teams. That really helps use this Rangers team. So I like this stack a lot. Other side of this one, Andrew Heaney. $7,500 price tag on the DK slate. That makes him a value in my mind. I know we get bad Haney from time to time. I think we got him the last time out, if memory serves. And he can get tattooed. When he's not going right, he can absolutely get nailed by right-handed hitting. He can get nailed by lefties for power. It's not pretty when he's not going right. 4.13 ERA, 4.34 xFIP on the season, 3.96% home run rate. Anything, 4 is basically around what I consider a little bit ugly. So he's pushing that, but the 31% hard hit mark is nice. 88.2 miles an hour of average exit velo is not bad. 8.7% barrels you'd like to have cleaned up, but Haney's always going to be that guy. In 9 starts and 48 innings, he does have a nice 25.7% strikeout rate. There are certainly strikeouts in the heart of that Orioles lineup. There's a few guys that are very, very good at avoiding strikeouts, and that's kind of what they're trying to do organizationally. But there's a few guys that are striking out at aggressive, like mid-20s clips. So I think Haney could have a nice game, find some strikeouts here, maybe limit the few lefties that they roll out. You'll have Santander hitting from the right side against him. Actually, all of Mullins, Rushman, and Santander. So you get some of the switch hitters on the right side against them here. But I think Haney's got a path to a decent start. I don't love him at the $9,400 price on FanDuel, but I think he projects out okay enough on the back of some strikeouts that you can play him at that rate. And I think he's a nice discount on the DK slate. So I'd be more enthusiastic over on DK, but I would also take out some hedge stacks of Orioles bats. They've been
pretty good this year. A lot of counting stats in that lineup. You've got multiple guys, 3 guys in the lineup here with 8 home runs each. That's Mullins, Rutschman, and Santander. You've got Mountcastle as the team leader with 11 home runs. Just a nice little power core up at the top of the lineup that you can roster in a lot of different ways. And then you get Austin Hayes here, 3,800. Nice little 12% barrel rate, 44.8% hard hit for Hayes this season while slashing 311, 352, 491 for the season, creating runs 33% better than average. So that's pretty damn good from Austin Hayes. He's kind of securing his job here. He's either securing that he's going to stay in this outfield, or he's going to bring them back a nice haul in a trade somewhere when they need to clear up some of the spots for they have even more prospects on the way, and a couple of them in the outfield. So it'll be interesting to see how long Hayes is with the organization, if he's won himself a more full-time role going forward. He's still young. I think he's 26, 27. He's had a few good seasons, but he hasn't been a star. So I was considering him kind of an expendable player, but he's playing his way, into more consideration this year, I think, for them. So interesting season out of him, and he's still cheap, 3,800, 2,800. Nice price for a hitter who's having that kind of a season. Ramon Urias gets a little bit ignored. He's got a decent stick in the 6th spot in the projected lineup. Adam Frazier, same story. They're mix and match pieces that are cheap if you're going to this team. James McCann against the lefty, you can always go there, although it hasn't really been the case over the past couple of seasons. That's more 3-4 years ago, James McCann. We haven't really seen it, but he typically does get the plate appearances as their catcher against left-handed pitching. So you can go there if you want to. He does have a nice little 47.3% hard hit rate, only 68 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 121 ISO, 35 WRC plus. That's kind of the hitter he is. Jorge Mateo down the bottom of the lineup, started the season absolutely on fire. He was the best player in fantasy baseball for a few weeks, and he has been one of the worst players in fantasy baseball since. Down to 227, 277, 397 with an 83 WRC plus. Not good for Jorge. My dynasty team needs him to turn things around. I'm going to take a quick sip of coffee. This coffee brought to you by the Museum of Natural History. Great place. If you're in the New York area, visit the Museum of Natural History. I was there a few weeks ago. Took my niece there for the first time in her life to see the dinosaurs. It was my birthday day, our little excursion for my birthday. Anyway, hold on. This is the part where EMAC would normally be selling you guys something. All right. It's a little harder to do this, just flying through all on my own. Maybe it get legalized in here to the co-host. All right, let's look Astros, Athletics, Framber Valdez. Great spot for Framber. This is, the Athletics have been a team we've been attacking with pitching all year long, right? This is a team that we can absolutely throw pitchers at. We know they're bad. We know there's plenty of strikeouts. We know they're not going to hit a ton of home runs, create a ton of runs, etc., etc. And Framber is one of our top pitchers to go to for DFS purposes in my mind. He's one of our best pitchers at limiting the upside of opposing teams. You see, we can use the A's here as an example. Let's take a look at Brent Rooker here. 5.52 in the home run model. Brent Rooker, obviously you guys know, I don't think a lot of him, but he's been shining through pretty well in the home run model on the back of what he's done this year and some past contact numbers and stuff. But he's basically half or so of what he would be against a normal pitcher, meaning a guy who doesn't have a 1.1 degree average launch angle this season. It was negative 3 point something last year, negative 5 point something the year before. Point being, Framber is very, very, very good at keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the ballpark, and limiting home runs, despite what is premium contact in terms of his hard hit rate, his exit velocity allowed. If they're hitting the ball that hard and squaring it up, but it's not going up in the air, I really don't care that they're hitting it that hard. Sometimes that does lead to, batting average on balls in play and, some run creation opportunities, but Framber's actually very good at limiting that as well. 27.6% strikeout rate, only walking 4.6%. He is elite. 2.45 ERA, a 2.51 xFIP. Just dynamite pitcher here. So 10.7 on DK, 11.6 on FanDuel. Hopefully the FanDuel price, maybe you get them limited a little bit in terms of the ownership. Maybe people don't want to go that direction. I think they probably will still roster him. We've seen some expensive pitchers against this team get a lot of ownership. So we'll see what happens there. 10.7 is a nice price, I think, on the DK slate. You just lock and load as an SP1 over there. I see no issues with it going up against this A's team. If you want to go to A's, it's a situation where if Framber was very popular, you could make the argument, all right, the A's look good as a hedge stack or as a contrarian option going up against that much of the field, yada, yada, yada. What I don't like about doing that against this kind of a pitcher is the nature of how Framber pitches. He doesn't get blown up that often. that ability to cap home runs is really powerful in taking the bat out of another team's hand. If he loses a ball game, it's going to be with 3-4 runs. It's going to be because his team didn't score for him more often than not because the other team just absolutely lit him up. So there's really limited opportunity with a really bad ball club. Like, I'd rather do that against a guy who isn't a ground ball specialist with a team that has at least a few decent bats. I just don't like this A's team. But if you're going there, Esteury Ruiz, obviously speed burner off the top. If he gets on base, he's going 27 stolen bases now on the season. The 100 stolen base watch is very real, I think, for Ruiz, which would be fun. That would be the first one since Vince Coleman, and I think it was 1987. And he would join a list of 4 guys: Vince, Ricky Henderson, Maury Wills, and Lou Brock are the only 4 guys who have done it since 1900. Each one of those guys did it multiple times. So that's a fun thing to watch with this team the rest of the season. Rooker I've talked about ad nauseum. I think he's probably under the Mendoza line. I don't know what he did last night, but probably under the Mendoza line for the month of May. Has just been atrociously bad in May, cratering back to earth, but does have 11 home runs, still a 151 WRC plus, 255 ISO. So those are the numbers that are on his ledger. They will look probably, the home run total won't be much higher, and all the other numbers will look worse in a few weeks. So we'll see what happens there. Ramon Laureano, Jesus Aguilar, Carlos Perez, Aledmus Diaz, Shea Langoliers, Tony Kemp, Nick Allen. Mix and match them if you're going to this team, but it is not a good spot. Shea Langoliers is a catcher that I like a lot of the time. Sneaky catcher with a little bit of power on the DK slate. 3,000 over there. 11.2% barrel rate. Nice little contact profile. 7 homers on the year, a 178 ISO. He's a usable part as a catcher. Like, if you wanted to one-off a Shea Langoliers, probably in other situations again, though, because it's unlikely that he's going to homer against Fromber. So in other spots, Shea Langoliers is a catcher I would call out from this team. You get a double catcher configuration in the projected lineup with Carlos Perez in there as well. We'll find out what they roll out there in the confirmed lineup later on. The A's side of this one, or the Astros side, almost skipped talking about the Astros going up against Happy Hogan here. Hogan Harris, a lefty. I don't really know much about him. A third of an inning so far this season. Looks like he walked 3 hitters in a third of an inning. How do you walk 62.5% of one hitter? Whatever. But actually, no, he got 1 out and walked multiple people. That's how that works. Anywho, I don't know or think a lot of Hogan Harris in this spot. What I want to talk about is Astros bats, because they are showing a ton of power up at the top of the board. They were either the leader or the second-ranked team in my power index, which is up on the site over at rotoscouts. So just dive on in with the familiar names with the Astros and throw them against this lefty. Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Jordan Alvarez, Kyle Tucker off the top. Just straight line those 4 guys, and I'm happy. You've got a nice little stack there. Altuve, 21 plate appearances after the injury. Hasn't homered yet. Will homer. I think he had 29 last year, or 28 last year. Just a dynamite for a tiny little guy. Dynamite power hitter. Don't know how he does it. Bregman kind of struggling along, 225, 329, 361 this season. 6 home runs. I believe that'll turn around, but Bregman's out toward the back end of his career. He's definitely coming down the other side of the mountain. He's cheap, though, for the struggles. So I'll take some discount Alex Bregman, particularly if I'm going to stacks. Might limit the amount that I want to get to him as a one-off in this situation. But a righty like him against a lefty like this, I think you can throw him in there if you want to. Alvarez and Tucker, do not ever discount those 2 guys for going up against a left-handed pitcher, particularly not one like this. They don't lose much of anything against lefties, even against good lefties in terms of power, contact profile, hit tool, etc., etc. So I'll always take shares of them, especially if they're lower owned because a lefty is on the mound. I wouldn't expect that to be the situation today, but I think you can go to those guys. Abreu has been just atrociously bad, still at 0 home runs since early last August, which is a massive concern. Last year he got by because he was still like a 300 hitter. He was still getting on base, still created runs well above average. This year, 217, 275, 254, a .037 ISO, 52% worse than average creating runs. Where have you gone, Jose Abreu? It's difficult to recommend him even at 2,700, 2,400. He's in the middle of the Astros lineup. He'll eventually do something to produce something. He'll probably hit a home run this year, 1 or 2. But yeah, it's been bad. So if you skipped him, I wouldn't call you crazy. He's very cheap. There is history there. So that's kind of what we're going with Abreu. Jeremy Pena has not been the same player as last year, but he does have 6 home runs, 6 steals. I feel like he had that in like mid-April, like on tax day. I think he had those 6 home runs and 6 steals, and we've just been talking about him since. 10% worse than average creating runs, kind of an option at shortstop. A little expensive, $4,800. Feels like he should be a little bit cheaper with the production he's had this year. 29 on FanDuel, certainly playable over there at that price. Jake Myers, Martin Maldonado, both guys who can put up those odd, that weird Martin Maldonado slate bending home run for cheap that nobody owns at the bottom of the lineup. You could see that, but it's never reliable. Chas McCormick, I think you guys know that I like. Only 2 home runs, and the contact hasn't really been there this year. 7.3% barrel rate, 27.3% hard hit from a guy that we normally like because he's normally good at finding premium contact. 2 homers, 4 stolen bases, just 82 plate appearances though. I do think McCormick will come around. He's cheap. If he hits a little higher up, like let's say you get him 6th instead of 8th, that would be a nice little bump. I would like him a little bit better there. So we'll see what happens with the confirmed lineup as we go. Moving on. Where are we at? 11:30. All right. Doing a lot of talking. It's tough to keep track of what the pace is like when I'm only talking to myself too. So we'll have to figure that out as we go as well. Interesting pitching matchup out in Seattle. Vince Velasquez coming back. I think he was banged up the last couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken. This might be his first start coming off the IL. 35 and a third so far this year, 23% strikeout rate, 3.06 ERA, a 4.49 xFIP. That's more than Vince Velasquez, we know, right? We're not going to get fooled by that 3.06 ERA. He's got elite stuff when it's working for him. Stuff Plus likes him in terms of how his pitches work and the physics behind his pitches, but he's just never been able to fully put it together at the major league level. He's got the talent, but I like this Mariners lineup. I believe more in their side. So only tepid interest, 7,700 if you wanted to play a few value darts of Vince Velasquez. I wouldn't call you completely nuts. 8,900 single pitcher site on FanDuel. You can see, I know I'm not showing the projections, but you can see this little weird graph here. There's only one little bar filled in there, so not great. Luis Castillo on the other side, getting a few little bars there, so he looks a little bit better. You can do a little comparative analysis in your heads there and figure out that we like Castillo a little bit better here, despite the higher pricing. I don't know that I would go to Velasquez against this Mariners lineup at 8,900 on FanDuel. Again, if you wanted to throw a few darts, I wouldn't call you totally nuts. There is the upside of strikeouts. There's certainly strikeouts to be found in the Mariners lineup. The projected lineup, 26.4% strikeout rate on the average here. So you get Ty France at 13.4% is difficult to strike out. Everybody else is worse than league average basically. So there are plenty of strikeouts there, but I just don't trust Vince Velasquez. We've had that experience before. We know what we've got in this guy. So if I'm rostering a pitcher from this game, it's most definitely going to be Luis Castillo on the other side going up against the Pirates. Kirby got dinged, I believe, last night. I know the Pirates put up a bendy total. I fell asleep kind of early last night, so I don't know if all that came against Kirby, but the Pirates are a team kind of like the Athletics that I'll just throw pitchers at. I know they were frisky earlier in the year, but I don't really care about any of that. I will throw pitchers and absolutely elite pitchers like Luis Castillo. Yes, please. Sign me up. 28.3% strikeout rate over 57 2/3 this year. 10 starts, 2.58% home run rate. He's given up a little bit of premium contact. 10.5% barrels, 47.7% hard hits. That's a lot of hard hits. 91 miles an hour of average exit velo, but it hasn't really hurt him. He's able to work his way out of jams via the strikeout. Doesn't walk that many. 5.6% walk rate, 1.04 whip, nice 14.7% induced swinging strike rate, 29.5% CSW. Throws a lot of strikes going up against a Pittsburgh team that they haven't struck out that much this year. There's a couple guys, couple small samples in here, and a couple guys that are decent at not striking out. But Castillo's another level of pitcher. So I think I like his upside in this spot. 9,200, 10.8. He's not expensive enough for this matchup on the DK slate. So I think you can get some nice length out of Luis Castillo here. If you're going to Pirates, it's the top end for me. It's McCutchen, it's Brian Reynolds, it's Jack Sawinski up top. Carlos Santana's been pretty lousy this season. 3 home runs, 5 stolen bases, 234, 328, 368, 135 ISO, 7% worse than average creating runs, and not making good contact. Last year, 9.3% barrel rate, 44.9% hard hit from a guy that's a switch hitter, former decent power hitter with multiple 20 home run seasons. This year, that's fallen off the earth. 33.3% hard hits, 4.3% barrel rate. That's why he's cheap at 3,100, 2,900. I don't know that we need him here. If you were making a ton of Pirate stacks, obviously you include him in some, but if I'm only going to the Pirates once here, I don't know that I include Santana rather. I do want to include Sawinski for sure. He's the best power hitter on the team probably. 9 home runs on the season, 14.1% barrel rate, 44.7% hard hit. Brian Reynolds, 7 home runs on the season. He hit those 5, I think it was, the first week of the season, then didn't hit any for about a month and a half, now has 2 more. McCutchen's having a nice year, so you string together those guys up top. I've talked about Brian Hayes a few times in the article. I just think this guy should be a better hitter based on what I see, right? 14.4% strikeout rate means he makes a ton of contact, puts the ball in play. 46.8% hard hit rate means he's hitting it hard. Means we're getting good premium, and he's still 231, 287, 360 with a 129 ISO, 75 WRC plus. This guy just should be a better hitter than he is. So some batting average on balls in play, bad luck in there, and some other stuff baked in. He's not a great option, but at 2,700, 4,200, you could get that any given slate upside out of Brian Hayes. Marcano, Palacios, G1 Bay, Austin Hedges, these are not great names. Mix and match pieces for DFS. G1 Bay at least has 14 stolen bases on the season. That's about all you're getting out of the bottom end of this lineup. Marcano's been fine, 266, 341, 468, 203 ISO, 120 WRC plus in 91 plate appearances. Those are nice short sample numbers. He's 2,300 at shortstop on DK, same price second base on FanDuel. I don't love it, but again, if you're going to a lot of lineups of Pirates, it's fine. You can certainly do that. Taking shares of the Mariners against Velasquez, I think you can definitely do. I think it's a spot that we want to focus on a little bit. They've not been as great as we were expecting them to be. A lot of that has to do with the struggles of Julio Rodriguez in the middle of the lineup. 233, 302, 416 for Julio, 183 ISO, only 3% better than average creating runs, 8 homers, 8 steals for last year's Rookie of the Year. He's been bolstered by Jared Kelenich's breakout. He's got 10 home runs, but he's been lousy in May. Has not had the same May as he had March and April. So keep an eye on Kelenic. I do believe in the breakout. I think it was very real, and we'll see him sustain it through most of the season here. But those two players, when they're not going right, this whole lineup's not going to go right. So you need them to produce. But there's some good pieces around them. I like J.P. Crawford in the leadoff role. He gets on base at a decent clip. Should be able to produce some nice correlated scoring for you at a cheap price. Fairly low ownership most slates, so I think you can get away with Crawford. Ty France, nice hit tool. Hasn't really produced with it this year. Missed a little bit last week, but he's back in the lineup and fully healthy. 260, 341, 406, a little bit lower than you would think in the triple slash. Hit 20 home runs for us last year, only 5 so far this season, but creating runs 16% better than average. Good correlated scoring piece with a little bit of additional upside beyond that. Eugenio Suarez, Cal Raleigh, Teoscar Hernandez, 3 excellent power bats. Raleigh's a switch hitter. They'll all be the other 2 are righties, so you'll get Raleigh on the left side today, the other 2 from the right side, but there's plenty of power for them from the right side against Velasquez here, so you can roster any one of those guys. It's never consistent with any one of them. You're talking about 3 hitters who are at 217, 237, 232 in terms of batting average. I don't really care that much about batting average, but it just tells you how much you're dealing with frequent contact there. But you do have 5 home runs, 7 home runs, 9 home runs from those 3 hitters. If I'm picking one, it's probably still Teoscar Hernandez. I do still like Cal Raleigh, 4,600 on the DK slate as a catcher, 2,900 on the FanDuel slate. But if I'm using him on FanDuel, I'm eliminating some premium first basemen that I want to get to, who I think I like a little bit better. But Raleigh does have a nice 211 ISO, 118 WRC plus for the season, so he's been fine, and certainly valuable as a catcher piece. You get nice contact profiles through that part of the lineup, though. Really, from Julio down, we're talking about 10 plus barrel rate for everybody here. We're talking about mid 40s to 50% hard hit rate. Come on, Cal Raleigh, get up into the 40s there, so I'm not lying. Cal sitting at a 14.2% barrel rate, 39.6% hard hits. But there's a lot of good contact through that part of the lineup there. Taylor Trammell, don't sleep on him. 2,100, 2,600, a decently regarded rookie coming up the last couple of years. Has missed some time with injury, has never really gotten a full opportunity, but has 3 home runs and 46 plate appearances, can definitely turn on one and square it up. So if he's in the lineup, I would not sleep on Taylor Trammell. If you get the Colton Wong version of the lineup, he's a usable part. Hasn't done much at all this season, but last couple of years usable for mid-range home runs and some stolen bases. So usable piece if you get the Colton Wong version of the lineup. Giants against the Brewers. Corbin Burns, Logan Webb, a couple of pitchers that are a pain in the ass for MLB DFS purposes. I'm not, if I can speak freely here. Burns, let's do Burns first. 21.5% strikeout rate over 56 2/3 in 10 starts this year. There's some concern there. 11.8% swinging strike rate, 29.1% CSW. I'm going to give you a little scroll action here, guys, so we can see last year's numbers on Burns the year before. Right, 2 years ago, Cy Young year, 35.6% strikeout rate, 16.6% swinging strikes, 33.8% CSW. Last year, 15.1, little dip in the swinging, little dip in the CSW down to 32, and the strikeouts went down 5 points to 30.5. But we've lost another 9 points from that. We've lost more swinging strikes. We've lost a lot of call plus swinging strikes. That's what CSW is, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. It's the total strikes, call plus swinging strike percentage. So we've lost a lot of strike throwing from Corbin Burnes. It's getting a little bit concerning. 3.97 ERA, 4.41 xFIP. He pitches fairly deep into games. He kind of makes it work, but he hasn't been that elite version of Corbin Burnes. The price is down 8,300 going up against the free swinging Giants lineup. I do think you can get a nice strikeout game against this team from Corbin Burnes, but there's also a bit of a risk for some power going back the other way. He's given up a 3.80% home run rate, 6.8% barrels, 36.4% hard hits is fine, but he's given up a little bit of power this year, and the amount of contact he's allowing is definitely a concern. So you're talking about Burnes at a discount. I think you can get away with going up against the Giants, but I would probably draw some Giants hedge stacks. At 96 on FanDuel, I think he projects well enough in this matchup that you can use him. You're throwing a dart there, but you're throwing a pretty good dart. Like if we're comparing him to like the Vince Velasquez dart, it's certainly a lot more comfy to use Corbin Burnes in that role. So I think we can get away with it. I think I would roster Corbin Burnes. He'd be in the pool, and depending on, let's say he comes in 12 to 15% projected ownership on the old FanDuel slate there, I think that would be about fair to roster him. If he was on closer to the 10 side, I think you could push out to like 15, 18, somewhere around there and get a little over the field. If he's getting out to that level, I wouldn't want to be much beyond that. If he's obviously lower owned at 5 to 8%, then yeah, come in 10 to 15, I think you can get away with. Logan Webb on the other side of this one is good at suppressing power, 2.7% degree average launch angle. So he's got that trait, the ground ball trait that we saw with Fromber. You can see it in the Brewers home run marks, right? Everybody's kind of suppressed in the home run model here. Everybody gets a little suppressed in the projections because of that. Rowdy Tellez, major home run hitter in general, 12 homers on the season at 272, massive 272 ISO, only a 5.01 in the home run model against Logan Webb here. So you see a little bit of limitation in both lineups with both of these pitchers on the hill. Webb, 65 innings in 10 starts, nice average depth of start, 3.0 xFIP, a 2.91 ERA, pitching very, very well, 25.3% strikeout rate, only walking 5.1%. You can definitely draw some shares of Logan Webb in this matchup against the Brewers here. He's 10-1 on the DK slate, 11,000 on FanDuel. I think you just fire away. I'd be comfy rostering him at decently aggressive around the field type shares, and he might be a pitcher that in this spot that the field doesn't get overly carried away with. That would make him a little bit more interesting to me. The FanDuel price is high, but I think it's playable, especially if he's kind of low owned for it. So I think you go that route. I don't really need too many shares of either one. If I got carried away with either pitcher, like if I rostered a lot of Burnes, got ahead of the field on him, I would definitely want to hedge that back with a few Giant stacks. So I'm looking at like Lamont Wade up at the top, Thairo Estrada, Michael Conforto, JD Davis, Mike Yastrzemski certainly from that lineup. Mitch Haniger, ton of power in that bat, hasn't really gotten it going. He got his third home run last night, sitting at 215, 245, 355 with a 140 ISO, 61 WRC plus, but only 98 plate appearances after coming back after missing the second half of last year and the start of this year with injury. I think Haniger's going to hit 39 home runs in plate appearances a couple years ago. So major power hitter when he's healthy. He's just never healthy, but you get him very cheap here. The top end of the lineup, I flew through, but I really like Lamont Wade. I don't think he's owned enough typically at 3,400, 3,000 at first base. He's a nice, cheap first baseman that people don't go to that much. He's got power. He's got excellent on-base skills, so he's a good correlated scoring piece with the rest of this lineup. 416 on base, 145 WRC plus with 7 home runs in the books. Strikes out 19.3% of the time, walks 18.2%. Just a guy at that price that's going to be that involved in what this team does. If I'm going to Giants, I want some Lamont Wade there. Estrada's been very good the last 2 years, 6 homers, 13 stolen bases this year. Nice little power core with Conforto, Davis, and Yastrzemski, lefty, righty, lefty. 11 home runs, 9 home runs, 5 home runs this year. Conforto, nice little bounce back. The hit tool's rounding into form. He had been showing power, but not any hit tool in his comeback here, and now he's up to 241, 342, 468 in the triple slash, so we're getting a little bit of hit tool out of Conforto too, so I really like that. Blake Sable's a little bit sneaky at 3,500 as a catcher down toward the bottom of the lineup. 5 homers, 180 ISO out of him. It's not great, but nobody goes to him. He's cheap, so I think you get some Blake Sable down there if you're going to this team. Casey Schmidt, Patrick Bailey to round things out have been capable in their 67 and 24 plate appearances respectively. I don't know if I believe in their production staying at this level in the the long term. But if you're mixing and matching, if you're building a lot of Giant stacks, I think they're perfectly viable at their prices. The Brewers I like a little bit less than the Giants side of things. For one, you're throwing Giants at a struggling version of Corbin Burnes, and Burnes doesn't necessarily have that same ability to check power, check home runs, check MLB DFS scoring that Logan Webb offers on the other side of this one. So if I'm going to Brewers, it's fairly limited shares, and I'm really only restricting myself to like the top end here, where I'm looking at the Christian Yelich's, the Owen Millers, the Rowdy Telez's of the world. It's weird to have Miller on that list, but he's having a nice start to the season. 117 plate appearances, 324, 350, 514 with a 189 ISO, creating runs 32% better than average, 4 homers, 5 steals on the season. He's still super cheap, 3,000, 2,800, multi-position on both sides. So I like some Owen Miller. Rowdy, I mentioned, ton of power, 12.1%, barrel rate, 40.2% hard hit, 12 homers on the season. You can always get Rowdy into your lineups. William Contreras, cheap catcher, he's playable, but again, it's not a good spot for power. It's not a good spot for counting stat upside. Jesse Winker, Brian Anderson, Bryce Turang, Tyrone Taylor, Joey Weimer on the back end of this team, kind of probably going to struggle to turn this lineup over. It's not a great lineup in the second half. Winker is a guy who just absolutely died after 2 years ago. He was in Cincinnati. We'll scroll over again quick for this one because he's on my dynasty team, and this one drives me bananas. Let's see, where is Winker on this list? Why am I not getting? Oh, because he's hitting 5th. I wasn't expecting him to be hitting 5th in the projected here. So 2 seasons ago, 24 home runs, a 251 ISO, a 148 WRC plus, 305, 394, 556. Went to Seattle after that, cratered, 14 home runs, 219, 344, 344, a 125 ISO. Still was 8% better than average, creating runs in 547 plate appearances. This year, 34% worse than average, creating runs, a .029 ISO, a 240 slugging percentage, 0 home runs in 123 plate appearances. He and Jose Abreu are lost, just floating around the Atlantic on a life raft somewhere or something. I don't know what's going on with those two, but they're lost at sea right now. So we'll see what happens with Winker. Still a young guy on the left side of the plate. We'll see if he can figure it out, turn his career around, but it hasn't been pretty. Anderson, meh. Turang, Taylor, Weimer, like I said, meh. You got nice power, sneaky power. I think it was 17 home runs out of Taylor at the bottom of the lineup. 2,000, 2,500 if you want a value play in the outfield. He's not terrible, but again, just Webb is not good for targeting for power upside. Skip the game. Jump into the Nats. The Nats and the Royals. Everybody's favorite series of the day. This is the hot one. So low end, so bad. We are seeing a nice little chunk of power for the Royals here going up against Josie Gray. It's been weird for Gray. He gave up. He was our prime target for power like all of last year, has given up a ton of home runs in his career, gave up multiple home runs a bunch of times, gave up 3, I think, in his first start of the season, and then all of a sudden just stopped throwing that meaty fastball as much and completely course corrected in terms of power. So it's not completely translated through the model. It's interesting how much power the Royals are showing today, because his last start, Josiah Gray's last start, it was starting to bleed through a little bit, his better performances. So I was seeing a little bit lower numbers than I was expecting. Today we're back up a little bit in the home run model. He didn't give one up in that last start, so I'm curious to see why. The Royals are a good power hitting team, so there's plenty of power against him here. But I'm interested to see which side of this wins out, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But Gray definitely has improved. I think he's usable at 7,200 on the DK slate. 19% strikeout rate, 11.3% walks. Those are still ugly numbers. You want more strikeouts, you want fewer walks. A 4.93 xFIP, a 2.65 ERA though. 2.65 ERA is quite nice. I think the 4.93 xFIP is the more believable number, the more realistic number with this pitcher. But I think at 7,200 against a team with plenty of strikeouts available for him, I think you could find some upside there. I don't like him at the $8,900 FanDuel price. If you're loving it, if you're a big Josie Gray fan, big Nats fan, if you're EMAC or whatever, I won't necessarily try and talk you out of it, but I don't love that spot, that price for this pitcher. I still don't fully trust him. And just because he's not allowing home runs doesn't necessarily mean he's going to go out and have a great DFS performance for me against a Royals team that I do kind of believe in and do kind of like here. A lot of green dots in this Royals lineup here as we look down, so a lot of decent projections there. But again, remember that's comparative to their projections and the Nats projections on the other side, so it's not necessarily the entire slate, but I do like the core of Nick Prado. I was preparing myself to say the name Pasquantino in my head, and I stumbled over Prado. Nick Prado, Vinny Pasquantino, Sal Perez, MJ Melendez. I like that core up top, and then Bobby Witt, wherever Bobby Witt's hitting in the lineup. If he's leading off, if he's hitting cleanup, if he's hitting 6 like he is in this projected, you're getting a guy with power, with speed. He's got 9 home runs. He's got 15 stolen bases this year. A 203 ISO. He hasn't been the star that everybody was hoping for so far this year, but we saw mostly that guy last year, and I do think we're going to get him back. So they bumped him down the lineup to, kind of help him get started on the season, and I think it's kind of helping him out. He's turned things around a little bit in recent games. Hit a home run, I think, last night, if I'm not mistaken. Nice little home run mark for him, and he's cheap, 5,500, 3,300. Another guy that I'm just happy to take the discount due to the underperformance. I'm not playing these last few weeks of stats tonight. I'm just playing whatever he does tonight, just playing whatever he did last night. So that's the way we want to look at these guys. Everybody that I mentioned at the top of the lineup, from Prado, Pascantino, Perez, and Melendez, are all cheap. Getting Sal Perez in this matchup against this pitcher at 5,000 where you need to play a catcher, that's a discount. 11 home runs for Sal, 283, 323, 533 for the season, 250 ISO, creating runs 26% better than average. Sign me up for some Sal Perez. So I would be over the field on Royals probably here. I say over the field because I'm just kind of speculating about where the ownership is going to be. I try and do all my content for the guys who haven't heard it before looking at any of stuff, ownership or anything like that from Stochastic or any other sources around the industry, so that I'm just giving my thoughts and I'm not corrupted by that. I don't want to obviously use Stochastic data on my side or anything like that. So I'm always speculating about ownership, but I think the Royals are probably going to sneak through a little bit underowned for the perception that Josiah Gray is a different pitcher now. So I think I would probably end up above the field on them. The bottom of the lineup, Nicky Lopez, Jackie Bradley, Drew Waters, you guys can keep those guys. I don't need those guys. But the top 7 here, or the top 6 rather, I think I can get involved with depending on what's in there. If you get like a Matt Duffy in the lineup, he's perfectly serviceable in terms of like a mid-range player with a decent hit tool who doesn't cost that much. So you can go to the Royals. The Nats on the other side against Brady Singer. Brady Singer has been bad this year. 7.48 ERA, 4.75 xFIP, only 18.9% on the strikeouts, allowing way too much premium contact. Look at these numbers down here, guys. 3.51% home run rate is kind of a miracle, given that he's allowing a 93.1 mile an hour average exit velo, 57.4% hard hits, and 11.7% power rate. Those are atrocious numbers. He was good the last 2 seasons, like mid-range developing good. When I say good, not elite, he's not Max Scherzer, but he was certainly, a good developing young pitcher, and it's just completely fallen off for him this year. So I don't trust Singer at all anymore. He's projecting out okay in my model. If I was just going by, take the straight line, what the thing's going to give me, he would probably end up in some lineups. I don't know that I trust it. I think I would probably cull him from my my pitching pool today, just given what he is. He's only 5,400. He's only 7,000 site to site, right? If you wanted to throw some darts, this is a team to do it against. It's kind of the opposite of what I was talking about with the Athletics, where I didn't want to take the contrarian shares of them because they're so bad against Framber. This is a spot where if I'm looking for a value pitcher who's been struggling, who's been bad, who's not an experienced guy, at least I'm getting him against the Nationals lineup. That's what you fall back on here. So maybe you can take some darts of Singer here, but I think it's a really, really thin path to success with this pitcher until we see some signs of life. So we'll see what we get, but it is a bad lineup on the other side. Lane Thomas has been their best hitter, creating runs 19% better than average for this season. You get Luis Garcia, 5% worse than average. Joey Meneses, 1% above. Candelario up to 4% above. Corey Dickerson we won't count because he's made 25 plate appearances, but he does have a nice little 2 home runs, 58% above average since he's been back. Everybody else well below average for run creation. No real counting stats to speak of. Thomas leads the team with 8 home runs. Then you get Candelario with 6. Everybody else below 5. It's just not a good ball club. Just not fun to go to. If you're going there, I'm going probably like, if I wanted to build a stack, probably like Thomas, Meneses, Candelario, Dickerson as a 4-man. It's not pretty. Maybe you grab some Alec Call down the bottom, but he hasn't been good. 3 home runs this year. CJ Abrams has 5 dingers, 6 stolen bases as a cheap shortstop. It's not a good lineup, but you're throwing them up against the bad pitcher. So I get it, right? They're a value play today. They're very, very cheap. They're going up against the guy who's given up a ton of contact. I do think they need to be part of plans. I don't want to shut them down to that level, but it's going to a very, very bad team against a struggling pitcher. It's one of those soft, squishy thing meets soft spot kind of a place, not a rock and a hard place. But yeah, not a spot that I like. I'm going to move on from this game just because I don't want to talk about it that much. Did I miss anything here? I don't think I did. They're a value play. Right, I greatly prefer the Royals bats to the Nationals bats here, despite the matchup in terms of the pitchers going the other way. That's all I got to say about that, in the words of Forrest Gump. Better game. Phillies against the Braves. quality lineups against quality lineup, quality pitcher against quality pitcher. Zach Wheeler, 8,900, 9,500. Pretty cheap for Wheeler. Good enough to get through this Braves lineup. We've seen him do it in the past. They've got a decent amount of strikeouts. They've improved in terms of strikeouts, 21.8% for the projected lineup on the average. And you get Acuna, who has jumped from a 23.6% strikeout rate last year to 13.8%. When you have a guy who's as good as him at everything else improve his, halve his strikeout rate, he's just so good. I can't say enough about Ronald Acuna Jr., but we were talking about Zach Wheeler, so we'll stick with that. 57 innings, 10 starts, 26.1% strikeout rate, a 4.11 ERA, a 3.64 xFIP. I am happy to play Zach Wheeler at a nice little price discount, even against this Braves lineup. They're very hard hitting. They're very, very good. Wheeler has been okay, but not elite this year, but only a 4.3% barrel rate allowed, 34.4% hard hits, 85.1 mile an hour of average exit velo, a 1.63% home run rate this year. Wheeler's good at capping home runs. It's not because of launch angle. It's just because he's difficult to square up. The launch angle, as you can see on there, is 14.8 degrees. So he gives up some fly balls, but just not with a lot of power, not with a lot of barrel behind it. So he's a very, very good pitcher. I think at a discount, I think you'll probably get him at an ownership discount here too, which makes him a little bit more appealing. So if I'm taking shares of Wheeler, I'm definitely taking some Braves going back the other way, and I'm focused again on the top end. I was just talking about Acuna and his ridiculous improvement in strikeouts. In addition to the elite strikeout rate, due to slashing 323, 409, 562. He's got a 239 ISO. He's created runs 60% better than average in 232 plate appearances, 15.3% barrels, 54.7% hard hits. The only thing this guy doesn't do well is defense, and that's just because he doesn't try out there. He could be elite at defense as well, but 6,400, 4,700, fire away. If you can afford him, put him in your lineups. Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Sean Murphy, just a deadly trio of power hitters. Austin Riley's come back to life over the last 10 days or so after scuffling along for a few weeks there. He's an elite power hitter. 30 home run seasons the past 2 years. He's got 9 in the books already this year, despite struggling a little bit. So love Riley there. Olsen has 14 on the season, a 284 ISO, creating runs 34% better than average. Murph, one of the best catchers in the game for at the plate, 10 home runs on the season, an 18.7% barrel rate, 46.7% hard hits. You roll that right into Marcell Ozuna, who's super cheap in the outfield and has just been absolutely crushing the ball. He's not great for hit tool anymore, but still ton of power, 11 home runs on the season, a 285 ISO out of Ozuna, 14.6% barrel rate, 46.9% hard hits. That is very good production from a guy who cost $2,700, $3,000 in the outfield today. So fire away with Ozuna. Eddie Rosario in that outfield is also very, very cheap. He hasn't been as good as Ozuna. Similar triple slash numbers, 75 WRC plus, so 25% worse than average creating runs. Only 5 home runs on the season, but a capable enough veteran bat for cheap prices and low ownership has some value when going to this expensive Braves team, right? He's a usable piece there. Ozzie Albies, star second baseman who never gets enough love. He's very cheap, 4,600, 3,100. I talk about him all the time. 10 homers on the season, 213 ISO. Only at exactly league average 100 WRC plus so far for the season, but just mashes when he makes contact. We know Ozzie Albies is a star. He's too cheap. He's always too unpopular. Orlando Arcia is a player that I've talked about a bunch in my articles this season. Nice little year from Arcia so far. 320, 381, 505. A 184 ISO, a 140 WRC plus in 113 plate appearances, 4 home runs on the season. He's a guy who never gets popularity. He's 3,700 at shortstop only on DK. Kind of sucks for DK gamers because you get him at 3 positions on FanDuel. Shortstop, third base, and second base, 2,900. He makes a lot of combinations of this lineup work. He helps you combine the elite players in this lineup, and he helps you put them together with players from other teams where all of a sudden, hey, all right, shit, I wanted to play the third baseman from this team. Well, if I switch Arcia to second, if I switch Arcia to short, or if I take this guy out and use a cheaper Arcia at that position from the Braves, I'm gaining ground. So very valuable little piece in that lineup. And then let's not sleep on the 9-hitter, Mikey Harris. Hit his second home run of the season last year. Maybe signs of life from the guy who's just been totally flat after winning the National League Rookie of the Year last year. 2 homers, 4 stolen bases. It was out for a big chunk of the season, right? We can't fault him for that. But he's made 105 plate appearances at this point. 181, 257, 287, a 48 WRC plus. Not the guy we saw last year, but I have tons of faith in this kid. Just a toolsy guy with tons of power, tons of speed that we saw all through last year. So I think we can go to Michael Harris with plenty of confidence if he's in the lineup. If they give give him the day off. They've been kind of nursing him along, and he did have a nice game last night, so maybe they give him an attaboy and take a seat, cool off, but maybe they run him right back out there. Who knows? But my point is, if you get Sam Hilliard down at the bottom of the lineup, he's a guy who's been productive, also hits left-handed. I think you can work him in super cheap at a discount price, discount ownership as well. If you get Travis d'Arnaud catching instead of Sean Murphy catching today, I think they did that last night, so you'll probably get Murphy if I'm remembering correctly. I think they planned ahead for the day game after the night game. But if you do get d'Arnaud in the lineup at all, he's certainly playable. Very, very good above average power hitter as a catcher. He's not Murphy. He's not like the Will Smiths of the world, but he's a next tier down from those guys. So very viable catcher bet from d'Arnaud as well. The Phillies side of this one, they're going up against Charlie Morton. Charlie's cheap as well. 7,900 on DK, 98 on FanDuel. Playable prices on both sites. We know what we're getting with Charlie Morton. He's basically been around this guy the last couple of seasons, a 3.61 ERA, a 4.09 xFIP, 23.5% strikeouts. I believe that's down a little bit if I'm remembering. Yeah. So that's where we're losing a little bit of quality with Charlie. He's down about 5 percentage points in the strikeouts. The swinging strike rate, 11.9%, down from 12.2. The CSW, 29.8, down from 30.6. Those aren't huge dips. So I expect that this is probably just a little bit of a statistical blip that'll normalize over the rest of the season. He might not get to 28, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Charlie finish 25, 25.5, 26% strikeout rate, somewhere around there. Be essentially the guy that we've seen in the last few years. So definitely think he's usable here. There's plenty of strikeouts available in the Phillies lineup. Their key hitters are the heavy strikeout guys as well. You get a decent 15.9% strikeout rate out of Alec Bohm and 16% out of Bryson Stott. Those guys are serviceable cogs in the machine for this lineup, but the aggressive free swingers are the guys that are their best players, the Trey Turners, the Bryce Harpers, the Kyle Schwarbers of the world. So when you're getting those guys as your over swingers, if you're pitching through and you're avoiding the home run ball from them, you might be getting the strikeouts as well at the same time. So I like Morton's upside, especially at the DK price. There's a lot of value on him on DK. Same time, this is again a four corners kind of a game for me, where I'm taking pitchers, I'm taking bats on both sides, I'm taking the bats against good pitching here. That would temper my use of the bats, I think, a little bit, the fact that there are good pitchers on both sides, but both of these teams are good enough to be in the mix. So if I'm going to Phillies, if you get Stott in the leadoff role there again, decent player, is 2% above average now, and getting a little bit of a bump from being in the leadoff spot there. He's affordable. He's got 5 homers on the year, 8 stolen bases. Hits ahead of Turner, who is kind of scuffled along, 5 homers, 6 stolen bases, a 79 WRC plus. We know in our hearts that Trey Turner is a hell of a lot better than that. He'll turn things around. He's going to have a monster next couple of months and be perfectly fine by the end of the season. Bryce Harper, Nicky Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto, nice little core there. They're all fairly cheap for their talents too. You get Harper 56.38 from site to site. Then you get Castellanos 46.34, Schwarber 47.3000, and Realmuto 48.29. Those are decent buys for those 3 hitters. I know they haven't been elite. Castellanos had a very nice start to the year. I was declaring him as fully back, and he's kind of slumped a little bit in May, but the numbers are still good. The hit tool's still there. The power has come down a little bit, 166 ISO, still creating runs 17% better than average. 5 home runs in the books. I do still think that Nicky Castellanos is mostly back, right? I think at the very least we're getting the guy with the productive hit tool that we saw hit 300 a couple times when he was in Cincinnati, and maybe we get that mid-range power. So I like Nicky Castellanos there. Schwarber, obviously, just absolute masher. 12 home runs on the season, despite 169 on the front end of his triple slash here. So you're not getting base hits from Schwarber, but when he connects, the ball travels. 12.9% barrels, 46.4% hard hits. Gotta love that. Alec Bohm, Brandon Marsh, both been very, very productive down toward the bottom of the lineup here, so you can play both of those guys for cheap. Cody Clemens, nice little power bat as well. 12.5% barrel rate on the season in 63 plate appearances, 4 home runs, a 241 ISO in the tiny sample. So get a little bit of sneaky productivity if you get Cody Clemens at first base at 2,400 on both sides down the bottom of the lineup. I think, gang, we are coming to our last game of the day. Last game of the first show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. 7 of you guys hanging out watching with me. I've been talking for like 75 minutes. Hopefully you're getting something out of this. Send me some feedback in our Discord. Tell me what I can do better. Tell me if I need to slow down, if I need to say less, if I definitely need to have somebody talking with me here so it's not just me droning on and on. But I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I'm going to head up to the Yankee game after we plow through this one. I'm not even playing this slate, by the way. Just going to the game. Anyway, Tyler Glasnow. Season debut for Glasnow. I don't know if we're expecting a pitch cap. I should have checked that. I didn't realize we were getting Glasnow. I'll try and Google that real quick here. But Glass now, when we're getting full strength Glass now, you can certainly get. I'm just trying to real quick see if I have a pitch count. Silence is a great way to gain clicks and thumbs up for a show. Sitting here reading stuff online as you guys listen to silence is definitely what you want to be doing. I'm not seeing a pitch count, but I wouldn't be optimistic, in his season debut. See if you can find that. If there's a limitation on Glasnow's pitch count, I just think 8,600, 9,100. It's going to be a little bit high priced for this guy. He's certainly a very talented pitcher. You can see some of the numbers from the last couple seasons. 88 innings, 14 starts 2 years ago, 36.2% strikeout rate, 2.66 ERA, 2.70 xFIP, 17.2% swinging strike rate, 33.7. These numbers would be among the league leaders this year if he was doing that this season. But again, season debut going up against the Dodgers, not a good spot, and probably capped for pitches. Sorry for not looking that one up, guys. Didn't realize that was going to be the case here. 57 and a third innings, 10 starts for Clay Kershaw. We've gotten pretty much the Clay Kershaw that we know and love. He is among the league leaders, 15.6% swinging strike rate, 32.4% CSW, just pounding lots and lots of strikes, inducing tons of swinging strikes, adding up to a 29.7% strikeout rate in his 10 starts. I really like Clay Kershaw here. 10.6 on FanDuel, 9.5 on DK. A little bit discounted, going up against obviously the rolling elite Rays lineup here. We're talking about Clay Kershaw. If somebody in baseball is going to overcome this Rays lineup, Clay Kershaw is on that short list of pitchers to do it. 32.7% hard hits for the season, only 86.6 miles an hour average exit velo. I like my Clay Kershaw investment opportunity here, so I would take out some shares of him on both sites. I like it a little bit better at the cheaper price on DK. I think you get a nice little discount on him there. There's upside there. Could the Rays get to him? Absolutely. They certainly could get to him. They've been getting to everybody this year. But it's Clay Kershaw. Let's take the discount and let's roll with it. On the Rays side of things, if you're going to that, and if you're going to a bunch of shares of Clay, I would probably grab some hedge stacks of Rays here. So you're looking at Yandy. Yandy's been absolutely on fire this season. 12 homers in the books for him. 333, 435, 635, 301 ISO, creating runs 100% better than average. Yandy's been worth another player for this lineup. It's like they roll 10 deep in this lineup with Yandy there. By the way, everybody in this lineup is well above average. So the average WRC plus in the projected lineup is 142. So basically each guy in the lineup is worth half again as much as the average player for run creation this year. That's insane. They're running what? They're running like a 15-man lineup essentially out here. That's just bonkers. So tons of run creation, obviously tons of power, counting stats galore in this lineup. You can see there are 5 hitters in the projected lineup who have 7 home runs. They lead the league in home runs. They lead the league in stolen bases. You get Yandy up top with 12. You get Randy Arozarena in there with 11. Randy's having a killer season as well. 306, 412, 536 at 230 ISO. Creating runs 69% better than average. Nice. That one's for EMAC. 5,900, 4,000 across sites for Randy Arozarena. You just go there. You can just click it blindly. So if you're going to raise Yandy Diaz, Wander Franco, Harold Ramirez, another guy, nice little season. He's a guy who always had that like stout line drive hit tool, nice little hard hit rates over the past few years, but was never a big home run hitter. This year, 7 home runs and 150 plate appearances. Everybody on this team has been just dramatically overperforming their talents, their history. Taylor Walsh, great example of that. Multi-position eligible, both sites, 4,100, 3,400. Dude has 7 home runs this year, a 246 ISO. He was never that guy. I think he hit 6 home runs all of last year, 6 home runs the year before. You're just getting outrageous performances. Christian Bethancourt, 3,800, 2,900, where you need catchers. Bethancourt is a productive little catcher. 14.8% barrels, 51.9% hard hits this year, 7 home runs in the books in 118 plate appearances. What more do we want from a catcher that costs 3,800 where you have to play catchers? So if you're going to the Rays, I think all those guys are in play. Jose Siri is definitely interesting at cheap prices. He's got 9 homers and 4 stolen bases this year. 9 home runs for Jose Siri. This is a guy that was like one of those, he's interesting for a little bit of mid-range power and some speed. He's sneaky. Nobody knows about him down the bottom of the lineup. Dude's got 9 home runs and 102 plate appearances this year. It's bananas. Something in the water down in Tampa Bay. Anyway, So we talked about Kershaw, the Rays, the Dodgers on the other side, going up against Glass now, and then I would assume some innings out of the bullpen here. You might get one of the longer relievers. They've got some very capable arms, very capable long relief arms in that bullpen too. Dodgers are the Dodgers. You can always go to them against most pitchers. Just star-laden lineup, starting with Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. Both of those guys are expensive but worthwhile. 11 homers for Mookie, 9 homers for Freeman. You still get second base eligibility on Mookie, which is very nice. Oh, actually, look at that. They added it back on DK. So you get second and outfield eligibility on Mookie on both sites. Freeman is one of the best first basemen in the league, 329, 403, 556 this year, creating runs 56% better than average. JD Martinez, nice little turnaround this season. He came into the year, I was saying, he'll create some runs for the Dodgers. He'll be productive in that lineup, but the power's not going to come back. 9 home runs, a 301 ISO, and 156 plate appearances. Prove me wrong, JD. Nice little start to his season. So 17.6% barrels, 52% hard hits for Martinez. Max Muncy at 53.37 is a nice buy. 15 home runs at 290 ISO, 19.2% barrels, 44.2% hard hits. Muncy's a star in that lineup. I don't care about his 198 batting average. Like, who gives a shit? If the guy's going to hit that much power and get that much premium contact for me, you can sign me up. Miguel Vargas has been more productive in May. The overall numbers are not great, but 9% better than average, creating runs for the entire season, over 187 plate appearances. That's fine. You'd like to see more premium contact, though. Only a 30.7% barrel rate. If you get the Peralta version of the lineup, he's a serviceable veteran mix and match piece at cheap pricing. Outman had an outrageous start to the season, 9 home runs on the season, 247 ISO still. Nice little contact profile. He's very cheap, 3,900, 3,000 on the left side. So sneaky little cheap outfield bat there against a righty. Miguel Rojas, Austin Barnes kind of rounding out the lineup here. If I remember correctly, Barnes has been atrocious for stolen bases against this season. So with Austin Barnes catching and the way that the Rays run, that might be something to keep in mind. If I am correct about that, I'm not going to take the time to look it up. But 12:09, that means I got to get my act together, get over to the D train, head my way up to Yankee Stadium. Guys, it's been a blast. I enjoyed talking to you about all this stuff, and hit the like button for me, hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when I go live and yada, yada, yada. I'll always drop the links in our Discord and where you guys are hanging out, but I won't be around the rest of the day, so we won't have anything updated on the old site there, but I'll catch you guys tomorrow, and we'll probably do another one of these tomorrow morning. Appreciate it, gang.